Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are strapping in for an intensive high-stakes journey across not one but two timelines.
Two timelines separated by a single, absolutely catastrophic historical event.
Exactly. We're examining sources that detail what happens when routine political maneuvering in the seemingly safe 20th century.
Collides, and I mean catastrophically, with a brutal future. One that's dominated by alien occupation and the chilling complexities of a temporal paradox.
This is a deep dive straight into, well, existential dread. We're analyzing detailed reports, notes, and first-hand accounts.
And these things read less like historical archives and more like a terrifying warning etched in, concrete and rubble.
Yeah. The source material is a unique blend of geopolitical crisis, specifically a crucial summit designed to prevent the Third World War.
And then on the other side of that coin, a brutal, inescapable future ruled by the most feared creatures in the cosmos, the Daleks.
That's absolutely right. And the premise of these documents is terrifying because they lay out a conflict where the fight for planetary freedom isn't happening now.
It's already been lost generations ago.
Right. So our mission today is to move beyond just a surface plot summary. We need to understand precisely how a seemingly contained political crisis in 1972 became the catalyst.
A linchpin.
The precise historical linchpin, yeah, for the total planetary conquest we see detailed in the 22nd century.
And critically, we have to dissect the mechanics of the time travel they're using here. The sources reveal that temporal interference in this specific case turned out to be a highly dangerous, well, a self-fulfilling historical loop.
The very attempt to change the past ended up guaranteeing the future. It's a profound structural examination, so it's going to demand that we shift around a bit. We'll start in the bleak, terrifying reality of the future dystopia.
Then move back to the high-stakes political drama of the past.
And then we'll analyze the technical and philosophical fallout of the time travelers who connected the two eras.
Excellent. Let's begin by establishing the ground rules of the 22nd century, because understanding the infrastructure of this occupation is key to grasping just how desperate the resistance had become.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting exactly where the catastrophe has already unfolded. The chilling landscape of the 22nd century under the oppressive thumb of the Daleks.
So this future Earth, which the occupation forces simply call Sector 1, is utterly desolate.
It's not just damaged, it's...
No. The description in the source material is stark. It's sensory, it's overwhelming. The planet is literally a sea of rubble, ravaged first by conventional wars after that summit broke down.
And then finished off by atomic conflict.
Exactly.
The sources really emphasize the depth of that destruction, detailing how long the recovery has taken. Even 2 centuries later, miniaturized Geiger counters still register minute traces of radioactivity.
Which confirms that this is a world that has been struggling to recover from global nuclear conflict for generations. This isn't a quick invasion.
No, this is a world that has been pulverized into submission.
And the architecture, what's left of it, reflects that submission. What little recovery there is purely functional, and it serves the new masters.
So the remaining human population, the survivors, they're living in these stark, ugly, functional concrete structures.
Which the source describes simply as Dalek-y. Just that one word.
Dalek-y.
It says everything. They are rough, cold, unpainted, and designed for efficient control. You get descriptions of cold, rough concrete floors and completely unheated dormitories.
So there's zero attempt at human comfort or any kind of aesthetic pre-war life.
None. Everything is purely utility.
And that focus on utility bleeds directly into the purpose of the remaining humans, doesn't it? The economy is just slavery.
It's been reduced entirely to slavery, all focused on feeding the immense, continually expanding Dalek war machine.
The sources go into a lot of detail about the function of the work camps. They aren't just prisons, they're vital cogs in this occupation.
Humans are primarily used for manual labor and simple administration, specifically working deep underground in mines and above ground in these massive rudimentary factories to process mineral ore.
And this raw material, we learn, is absolutely essential.
It's essential for the construction of new Dalek casings, for their weaponry, and for the sheer logistical needs of their expanding galactic empire.
The accounts that detail life in these camps are critical for understanding the daily reality of Dalek rule. We hear this grim story of a worker named Soran.
Yeah. His crime, He failed to meet his assigned work norm for the day.
And for that, he was subjected to a brutal beating by the guards that very morning.
He's described as weakening daily, tormented by the cold of the unheated dormitory, just murmuring and twisting in his sleep.
It's just awful. And the psychological function of the labor is critical here, isn't it? Because the ore extraction is needed, but there's a line noted by the doctor later on that gives this devastating insight.
Right. The entire process of ore sorting and basic processing could, technologically speaking, be entirely automated by the Daleks.
They have the technology. They have robots.
Easily. So, if the work isn't strictly necessary from an efficiency standpoint, what's the real purpose of keeping humans on that production line?
It suggests the labor is deliberate. It's not just about resource extraction.
No, it's a calculated means of wearing out the human spirit and slowly grinding down the human population.
It's a perpetual mechanism of psychological control.
Absolutely. Constant, debilitating physical toil, punctuated by random acts of extreme violence. It reinforces the absolute dominance of the alien rulers through constant fear and misery. They're ensuring that humanity can't recover enough strength or energy to organize a genuine threat.
And enforcing this miserable infrastructure is this, well, complex hierarchy of overseers, starting with the immediate physical threat. The Ogrons.
The Ogrons, these aren't intelligent strategists.
Not at all.
They're brute force. They are the physical manifestation of Dalek terror. They're described as creatures somewhere between gorilla and man, standing almost 7 feet tall.
The descriptions are so vivid. Massive chests, long, powerful arms that hang almost to the ground.
And their appearance is designed purely for shock and fear. Ape-like faces, small eyes glinting with cruelty, and a massive jaw with long yellow teeth.
There are the guards, the enforcers, or, as the sources reveal, the controller calls them,
The police dogs.
It's interesting that the sources dedicate so much time to their physical description because it highlights the contrast with their intelligence.
Which is their critical, exploitable weakness.
Exactly.
They are noted for their savage ferocity and primitive strength, but critically, they are very, very stupid.
And this intellectual failing is what gives the resistance these tiny windows of opportunity.
It is. Moni, for example, successfully talks his way past a roving patrol by simply invoking the absolute authority of the Daleks themselves. He plays on the Ogron's deep-seated primitive fear of their true masters.
So they just rely on direct, simple commands. They don't have the capacity for independent thought or, strategic deceit.
Not at all. Now, above the Ogrons sits the human who manages Sector 1. The controller of Earth Sector 1. He's the supreme authority among the surviving humans.
Yet he's still fundamentally just a highly paid, superior slave in the grand scheme of things.
He is the ultimate collaborator. And the sources take time detailing his rare luxuries, contrasting them so sharply with the surrounding rubble and the unheated dormitories.
Right. He drinks real wine in a real china cup and wears tunics made of real cloth.
Items of almost forgotten luxury that almost no one on occupied Earth possesses. He knows he is secretly envied and hated by his fellow humans, but those luxuries are his compensation for being the executioner of his own species.
So why do the Daleks need a human controller at all? If the Ogrons handle security and the Daleks themselves possess vastly superior intelligence, why rely on a human intermediary?
That's a crucial structural point. It serves two purposes. First, simple efficiency. The Daleks are galactic strategists. They delegate local, messy administration like dealing with work norm failures or deploying patrols to a subordinate.
Okay, that makes sense.
But second, and more importantly, it's psychological warfare. By forcing a human to be the immediate symbol of oppression, they divide the human population. The controller is proof that if you betray your species, you can survive, maybe even thrive.
And that undermines the unity of the resistance.
It completely undermines it.
Yet the sources reveal a complex internal life for the controller. He's not simply a monstrous collaborator, is he? He struggles with his position.
Absolutely. The internal monologue detailed in the documents shows he struggles with a twinge of unease when he thinks about the suffering in the work camps.
And he's forced almost to admire the courage and cunning of the resistance fighters.
He is. He understands why they fight, even as he actively works to crush them and report their whereabouts. He's caught in this impossible existential position, believing resistance is entirely hopeless, yet respecting the sheer human spirit of those who try.
That internal struggle is going to become crucial later in our deep dive.
It really is. And reigning over this entire structure are the true masters, the Daleks. We specifically encounter the Black Dalek and the Golden Dalek, the latter being the superior ruler.
Their regime is just built on total obedience. enforced by that infamous grating metallic voice and their relentless creed.
Exterminate them.
Exterminate them.
The Black Dalek handles the tactical command, but the Golden Dalek represents the supreme authority of the Dalek Empire.
The sources emphasize the chilling formality and distance of their rule.
Oh yeah. The simple fact that the controller, as the highest human authority, must still wait and be literally shoved aside by an Ogron before being allowed to report to the Black Dalek, visually demonstrates the true, non-negotiable structure of power.
It's all about hierarchy.
Even the slightest tremor in a Dalek's voice when they're angry is described as this sign of intense, regulated fury, a sign that their patience is nearing exhaustion.
So, against this overwhelming backdrop of devastation and iron rule, we have the resistance movement. They're described, quite tragically, as a pitiful handful.
A pitiful handful, yet their dedication is absolute.
They're small, operating in these little hidden cellar hideouts, where they store scavenged arms, minimal food, and their most precious asset.
Intelligence and plans. The accounts stress their persistence, describing their nature as immortal. For every group destroyed, another springs up to replace it.
Which is a testament to the fact that the Daleks failed to fully extinguish the human spirit, despite their best efforts to wear out the population.
Exactly. And we get to know the key members of this particular cell. Moni, a Central Committee member, he's the strategist.
Then you have Boaz, who's intense, fiercely brave, but prone to panic. He's described as too highly strung.
Right. And Shura is the youngest, fueled by this raw, fiery idealism, which is a dangerous mix of youth and desperation.
But the real operational leader of this cell is Anat.
Yes, Anat. She's described with great respect by the other members. Slim, dark, and wiry, possessing a fierce courage and a passionate hatred of the enemy.
Crucially, though, that passion is balanced by the cunning and caution that Moni approves of. They aren't just fighting for today.
No, they're fighting to undo the past that doomed them.
Which leads us to their radical, desperate plan. The mission that kicks off the entire temporal entanglement.
Moni presents a strategy developed by the scientists and historians of the Central Committee. It's described up front in the source as incredibly dangerous, maybe suicidal.
But it offers the only feasible chance to free the entire planet.
The plan is audacious. Nothing less than sending an assault team, heavily armed with stolen Dalek technology, back through time to perform a surgical strike.
Their target, Sir Reginald Styles, their goal, prevent the political crisis from escalating into the global conflict that paved the way for the Dalek invasion centuries later.
And this is the precise moment where the timeline fractures and our deep dive must shift back to the seemingly normal, politically volatile world of the 20th century.
That is a perfect transition. We're moving from the pulverized world of Dalek control back to the polished, tense atmosphere of Osterley House, circa the early 1970s, where the stakes are still high, but the threat is ostensibly conventional.
This is a masterclass in tension. The crisis centers on Sir Reginald Styles, a key diplomat. Styles is the key man in a crucial summit conference designed to prevent a third world war.
And we need to remember the historical context the sources provide here. The underlying tension is a serious, three-cornered quarrel between Russia, America, and China over their respective spheres of influence.
This isn't just routine diplomacy. This is the brink of global conflict.
Absolutely. Styles' personal stability and diplomatic success are essential because the success of the entire conference, including his critical follow-up mission to Peking, depends entirely on his ability to hold this fragile peace together.
If he fails, the future we just described becomes inevitable.
Right. And the temporal intrusion, the fulfillment of the Resistance's plan, it begins immediately.
A unit sentry is on patrol, nervous about the eerie night noises near the secured perimeter, when, near the corner of the building, there is a curious shimmering in the air.
This shimmering isn't just a cinematic effect, it's the sign of a crude, imperfect temporal materialization.
Suddenly, a man materializes. This is one of the guerrillas from the future, wearing dark combat clothing and carrying an enormous, distinctive pistol.
His target is Styles, who is conveniently in his ground floor study preparing notes for his crucial speech. The sources even detail the exact line he's working on.
Something like, "It is therefore vital that the Chinese government accepts the assurances."
The encounter is detailed in this gripping slow motion. Styles, despite being in his 60s, reacts with residual old soldier reflexes, flinging himself upon the materialized man.
They struggle in silence until the guerrilla manages to pin Styles down, pointing the enormous pistol straight at his head. Styles watches the man's knuckles whiten as he tightens his finger on the trigger.
And then, inexplicably, the attacker just vanishes.
Just as the steady door is flung open by the alerted sentries, the gorilla's figure shimmered, then vanished.
Styles is found wrestling with thin air and immediately claims he was attacked by a ghost.
And the aftermath is crucial because the unit sentries confirmed that despite being on high alert, no one was seen to enter or leave the highly secured premises.
The consequence of this event is immediate and disastrous for the summit. By the next morning, Styles, terrified of being seen as unstable, tries to deny the whole event.
He's afraid he's cracking up.
Right. And if the key negotiator is perceived as delusional or unstable, his mission to Peking is jeopardized and the delicate conference is likely to collapse.
Leading to the precise global conflict the future resistance was trying to prevent.
This is exactly why the Brigadier, Lethbridge Stewart, is forced to call in external expertise.
Specifically the Doctor and Joe Grant. The Brigadier is naturally highly skeptical. I mean, how can a secured man be attacked when no one saw anyone enter or leave?
But the Doctor, always the scientist, dismisses the ghost theory immediately. He notes that Styles isn't the type to invent things, confirming obviously something happened.
The Doctor's arrival sets the stage for the true technological extent of the temporal intrusion, and we get immediate confirmation of the stakes when a second, more violent intrusion occurs near a shut-down, unused railway tunnel.
Which the Resistance members are using as a temporary staging post.
Exactly. This time, it's not just a single gorilla, it's a pursuit team. 3 Ogrons, those massive, terrifying enforcers pursuing a fleeing gorilla, are intercepted by Sergeant Benton's alert unit patrol.
The gorilla is captured, but the Ogrons demonstrate the terrifying power of their advanced weaponry against the 20th century forces.
They carry that same strange, massive pistol. A shot from it results in a sharp electronic buzz.
And one unfortunate unit soldier is immediately disintegrated.
Benton later confirms with this chilling matter-of-factness that there was no trace of the body afterwards. This is just far beyond the capacity of conventional weaponry.
The Doctor's subsequent analysis confirms this is an ultrasonic disintegrator, a weapon far more advanced than anything yet developed on Earth.
It's designed not to wound or kill, but to utterly erase its target. It gives the Ogrons an instant, terrifying technological edge over a unit.
But here's where the source material provides that crucial, overlooked detail that confirms the paradoxical nature of the conflict. The Doctor's metallurgical analysis.
Yes, the analysis of the weapon material gives him significant pause. He concludes that despite its advanced nature, the metal used to construct the gun was definitely mined here on Earth.
Okay, wait. If the metal was mined on Earth, doesn't that fundamentally undermine the idea that the Daleks are a purely alien external force?
It connects their power directly back to our own planet's ultimate tragedy. It confirms it's a future artifact, an advanced weapon, not made in the 20th century, but made from Earth resources.
Specifically those processed in the very work camps we discussed in the first segment.
It's the first definitive physical clue that the future has been corrupted by a cyclical, self-sustaining pattern of conquest.
And this technological link ties directly to the captured gorilla, who is found with the key piece of evidence hidden in his tunic.
A small black box with control knobs.
The Doctor immediately identifies it as a rather primitive form of time machine.
It's rudimentary, unstable, and clearly cobbled together from scavenged technology, which explains the erratic materialization we saw at Austerley House.
And in a moment of accidental genius, or perhaps foreshadowing future catastrophe, the Doctor begins tinkering with it in the sickbay.
He accidentally activates the machine while examining its faulty circuitry.
We get a reprise of that temporal effect. A strange shimmering in the sickbay where the unconscious gorilla is being guarded by Benton.
The man simply faded away out of his hospital bed.
This accidental temporal displacement proves the machine's function and confirms the Doctor's terrifying theory about ghosts from the future arriving and disappearing unpredictably in their timeline.
The initial attempts by the Resistance were so unstable that the time travelers were snapping back uncontrollably to their original point of origin in the future, possibly under duress.
The Doctor's reaction is telling. He's struggling to figure out why the box is working at all.
Right. He's muttering that the thing is a complete botch-up that shouldn't work at all.
But the fact that it does work, even erratically, is enough to validate the Brigadier's fears. This situation is now far beyond the scope of conventional military security.
And it opens the door for the planned crossing by the remaining core Resistance members, Anat, Boaz, and Shura, who attempt to use this fragile, stolen technology to complete their mission.
And as the sources detail, the situation escalates rapidly. The remaining guerrillas successfully infiltrate the 20th century, finding the Doctor instead of Styles.
And that leads us straight into the core of the paradox, where the line between cause and effect utterly collapses,
Yeah.
thanks to an impulsive decision by Joe Grant.
So this segment details the true danger of temporal entanglement. The Doctor is confronting Anat and Boaz in their cellar hideout, trying to reason with them about the futility of their mission.
And Joe, acting impulsively, tries to neutralize the threat by using the captured, damaged time machine against them.
She ignorantly tightens her fingers on the control knobs, activating the faulty temporal circuitry.
And she is immediately pulled through the time vortex.
Yeah.
The descriptions of this journey are terrifyingly abstract.
Twisting and turning in a sort of strange, misty nothingness, feeling powerful forces pulling her apart.
She materializes, disoriented, right in the heart of the enemy's stronghold. Central control in the 22nd century. This is a massive mistake.
And the controller, the highest-ranking human slave, spots the critical intelligence opportunity instantly.
Joe is immediately interrogated. The controller, utilizing his knowledge of human psychology, uses a tactic of soft treatment and apparent friendliness, offering her kindness and water.
He assures her that the hulking Ogrons are merely useful servants or police dogs.
And Joe, overwhelmed and terrified, finds this comforting and reassures herself that the situation isn't as desperate as it looks.
This deception is highly effective. The controller manages to convince her he is trying to help her and the Doctor, masking the fact that he is skillfully extracting critical intelligence for the Daleks.
It's a masterstroke of subtle collaboration.
So what exactly does Jo reveal that is so critical to the Daleks?
She reveals the exact current location of the guerrillas, which is Osterley House, and critically, their suspected time transfer point, that railway tunnel.
This is intelligence the Daleks desperately needed to intercept the remaining future fugitives.
This is the first major complication. The attempt to stop the guerrillas inadvertently compromises the Doctor's entire operation in the past.
And when the Daleks learn the identity of the other figure involved, the Doctor, their reaction is intense.
It is. The controller notes their sheer, palpable fear, pronouncing his name with venomous intensity.
Why such a specific, terrified reaction to the Doctor?
Because the Daleks have history with him, and they know his true identity.
Yeah.
Earlier in the sources, the Doctor was briefly captured and subjected to the Daleks' most intrusive technological weapon, the mind analysis machine.
This allows the Daleks to confirm they are dealing with a Time Lord who possesses the dangerous ability to change appearance and identity.
Let's dedicate some time to this machine, because it's a piece of technical horror that defines the nature of Dalek control. What exactly does the mind analysis machine do?
It's a terrifying psychological interrogation tool. The power used is described as so immense that it forcibly pulls suppressed thoughts and buried identities out of the victim's mind.
And projects them onto a large screen lining the fourth wall of the room. When the Doctor is strapped down, the machine forces his past selves, his previous regenerations, onto the screen.
The screen shows two previous iterations. First, an old man with a sharp, querulous face.
Then a younger, dark-haired man with a humorous, rather comic face.
These projected images are proof enough for the Daleks that they are dealing with their supreme nemesis. It confirms his ability to cheat death and change his form.
And the controller, who witnesses this horrifying process, notes the machine's true long-term cost, which explains why the Daleks prefer it as a tool of total subjugation over simple execution.
Victims are left as shambling idiots, their intelligence drained and their personality fragmented.
The Daleks don't just want information. They want to destroy the intellectual capacity for resistance. It's a tool for total mental erasure.
So the Daleks, now in full panic mode, because their supreme enemy is active in the past and interfering with their established history, immediately deploy new, cutting-edge temporal countermeasures to lock down the future.
They install the magnetron in the temporal scanning room. The purpose of this device is incredibly specific and strategic. It's designed to divert any future time travel attempts, using that specific stolen resistance transmitter's frequency directly into central control.
It turns the Resistance's own stolen technology against them.
Exactly. Guaranteeing that the next time someone tries to flee from the 20th century, either back to the future or in an attempt to escape capture, they land directly into Dalek hands.
So if the guerrilla's time machine was already unreliable, the magnetron ensures that future attempts are not just unreliable, but actively weaponized against them.
Precisely. The Daleks are technologically controlling the flow of history. They are enforcing a temporal quarantine.
And yet, despite all this advanced technology, the true breakthrough, The moment the entire temporal paradox is revealed is driven not by tech.
But by history books.
This happens only after the Doctor escapes capture and is reunited with Moni and Anat in their future hideout. He forces them to re-examine their history books, the very documents that formed the foundational justification for their entire suicidal mission.
The passage they study details the origin of the World War that led to the Dalek conquest. The explosion in the cellar was of such shattering force that it was suspected that a small atomic bomb had been used.
But critically, the text adds that later tests showed no trace of radioactivity.
That one line, the missing radioactive trace, is the key. It immediately sparks the Doctor's realization. He knows exactly what material the guerrillas stole from the Daleks to bring back to the 20th century. Dalekinium.
Dalekinium is described in the source material as a devastatingly powerful, clean explosive with all the power of the atom, but no fallout.
This instantly explains the missing radioactive signature mentioned in the history book. If a conventional atomic weapon had been used, the Geiger counters in the 22nd century would be screaming, not just registering minute traces.
The logical fallacy in the guerrilla's mission snaps into devastating focus.
The Doctor realizes Styles didn't cause the war, the guerrillas did.
They brought the future's destructive technology, the Dalekinium, back with them, and in their misguided attempt to kill Styles and prevent the war.
They planted the bomb that would be blamed for initiating World War III.
This is the absolute core of the paradox.
The guerrillas believed they were traveling back in time to prevent the explosion and the resulting global conflict, but their very actions stealing and transporting the Dalekinium bomb meant they were, in fact, the unintentional cause of the devastating explosion that kicks off the wars that lead directly to the Dalek conquest.
Their desperate mission was not an intervention. It was a mandatory historical step.
They were trapped in a self-fulfilling, horrifying temporal paradox.
How do Moni and Anat react to the Doctor effectively telling them that they are responsible for their own enslavement?
The documents describe a terrible psychological toll. Moni and Anat are stunned into disbelief, trying to argue against the Doctor's relentless logic.
They're history students. They trust the historical record.
But the Doctor shows them how the record was simply misinterpreting the physical evidence, the lack of fallout, by assuming a conventional bomb. The revelation leaves them utterly broken, realizing their noble intentions led only to a cosmic trap.
And the final horrifying piece of the puzzle is Shura, the young, idealistic resistance member.
Right. Moni and Anne thought he had vanished, perhaps caught by an Ogron patrol or pulled back by the unstable time machine.
The Doctor knows he must be alive, wounded, and critically, still determined to complete the mission he thinks he was sent on, the assassination of Styles.
And the Dalekinium bomb Shura carried and hid in the tunnel is still unaccounted for, waiting for its historical moment at Osterley House.
This realization creates an immediate and terrifying race against time. The goal has now shifted entirely.
They can no longer change history, but they might be able to redirect the consequences of the bomb.
The objective is no longer preventing the explosion, but ensuring the bomb planted by the future resistance is the one that destroys the Dalek invasion force, rather than the delegates themselves.
This changes the narrative from an investigation into an active counteroffensive against an incoming invasion, set to trigger a global war.
That sets the stage for the dramatic and chaotic climax, the Day of Reckoning. The Doctor and Jo race back to the 20th century, knowing that the political summit is about to become a battleground, not just for diplomacy, but for the planet's history.
The sources confirm the precise, tragic state of Shura in the 20th century. After being battered and suffering broken ribs in the tunnel ambush, he succumbed to a high fever and was almost delirious.
His mind, stripped down by pain and fever, held on to only one singular, dangerous directive. Kill Styles, must stop the war.
Driven by this fevered determination, he manages to make it back to Osterley House. He hides in the unused coal cellar, a tiny cellar filled with lumpy black stone that no one, especially not a highly trained unit patrol, would think to search.
His ability to evade security is attributed less to skill and more to sheer blind luck.
Luck that ironically serves the grim historical loop.
His luck runs out slightly when he realizes the timing mechanism on the Dalekinium bomb jams, likely due to the rough handling and the primitiveness of the overall temporal technology.
But in his fevered state, he sees an easy, definitive solution. He'll use the contact plunger himself. His single, conscious, determined thought is waiting for the delegation to arrive in the house.
Meanwhile, the Daleks, Observing the temporal fluctuations from the 22nd century confirm that their specific favorable version of history is now at risk because of the Doctor's interference.
The Golden Dalek declares with absolute authority, "We must follow him to the 20th century time zone and destroy him. The war amongst the humans must break out."
This is the moment of direct intervention.
It's a direct admission that the Daleks are actively intervening, not to invade yet, but to ensure the catastrophe occurs, thereby preserving the timeline that leads centuries later to their easy conquest of a war-ravaged planet.
So they invade the 20th century in force. The Ogrons and Daleks pour through the time tunnel, finding the unit patrols waiting.
Unit forces, led by the Brigadier, fight bravely, using conventional military tactics and small arms. But the Ogrons, protected by their layers of incredibly tough muscle,
And the Daleks with their invincible metal casings.
they sweep up the drive with terrifying speed. The battle quickly becomes a losing effort for the 20th century military, who are simply unprepared for future weapons and armor.
But before that final confrontation, we get one of the most compelling dramatic moments in the sources. The Controller's redemption arc.
This psychological turnaround is profound because it's slow and agonizing. The Controller, already struggling with his admiration for the Resistance, is finally shaken by the Doctor's direct, brutal assessment when they meet in the 22nd century tunnels.
You're a slave.
That one phrase, it cuts through his self-justification and his pride in his superior status.
He makes an agonizing choice. When confronted by the Doctor and Joe during their escape, he tells the Ogron guards that he will deal with the prisoners himself.
Then tells the Doctor and Joe with genuine urgency to go quickly. He sacrifices his entire comfortable, if compromised, life to put history back on its proper path.
His final moments are described with the dignity he had long abandoned. When later confronted by the eager, ambitious Dalek collaborator Zeno before the High Council, the Controller is calm.
His shoulders have lost the cowed slump of slavery. He refuses to recant his treason and faces execution with utter defiance.
He faces the Golden Dalek and utters his final defiant words, smiling as he says,
"Who knows? I may even have helped to exterminate you."
he dies a free man. It's confirmation that the Doctor's accusation finally pushed him past his breaking point of collaboration and into true rebellion.
It validates the Doctor's faith in the enduring power of the human spirit, even one so compromised.
Back in the 20th century, the Doctor and Joe arrive at Osterley House just moments before Styles and the international delegates. The Doctor desperately tries to warn the Brigadier.
But Styles, focused entirely on the fragile diplomatic situation, refuses to leave. He's convinced the Doctor is now mad, having brought two future fugitives with him.
The Brigadier, however, is practical. The news of the full-scale Dalek and Ogron invasion creatures they have already seen using disintegrator guns provides the necessary military excuse.
He finally acts on military necessity, using force to evacuate Styles and all the delegates just moments before the Daleks sweep into the house, which they had identified as the central target.
The Brigadier and the key figures retreat to a small hillside to watch the ensuing battle. Meanwhile, in the coal cellar, Shura, weakened and fevered, hears the terrifying, grating metallic voices of the Daleks in the house.
They are triumphantly proclaiming their mission. The Dalek conquest of the planet Earth must not be reversed.
This is the pivot point. Shura sees the aliens who ruined his world. The aliens he thought his mission was designed to stop entering the very house he was targeting.
He achieves a moment of profound, clear-sighted determination, concluding, "Oh no, not this time. This time it's going to be different."
He consciously presses the contact plunger on the Dalekanium bomb. He sacrifices himself, ensuring the detonation takes place when the enemy is inside.
Destroying the Dalek invasion force and preventing the blast from killing the delegates, which would have been the historical trigger for World War III.
The resulting explosion is described not as a conventional bomb blast, but a single savage blast that leaves just a gaping black hole in the ground.
The immediate Dalek invasion force, including the Black Dalek and Golden Dalek, is destroyed, and the immediate crisis is averted.
The Doctor successfully intervened as a Time Lord, breaking the temporal loop created by the guerrillas' well-intentioned but disastrous mission.
And the sources confirm the psychological impact on the survivors. Styles, profoundly shocked by the experience of seeing aliens and future technology, proceeds with the conference.
The sources note that the delegates are now cooperating beautifully, their petty differences over spheres of influence suddenly seeming trivial compared to the threat of alien invasion and global annihilation.
The historical trigger was removed. peace prevails.
This correction to history is further cemented by the weird, lingering temporal effects detailed in the very final moments of the sources, a strange echo or fluctuation.
Exactly. Even though the primary paradox is resolved, the sheer amount of temporal activity, interference, and powerful explosions across time creates instability. We see the mysterious appearance of the two doctors and two Joe Grants,
A scene that exactly repeats itself from earlier in the narrative.
which confirms that the intense temporal activity has created detectable fluctuations and lingering echoes in time, even though the new, peaceful timeline is taking hold. The instability is receding, but the ripple effects are still very much detectable.
That was an exhaustive deep dive into temporal mechanics, political thriller, and dystopian warfare. We have moved far beyond a mere plot summary, analyzing the psychology of collaboration, the specifics of future weaponry, and the terrifying nature of the temporal paradox.
We covered a vast scope, from the micro details of a work camp beating and the exact metallurgical composition of a disintegrator gun, to the cosmic stakes of planetary conquest and time manipulation.
Let's synthesize the key knowledge for you, the learner, drawing out the lasting lessons from these source documents. First and foremost, we unpack the profound irony of the historical intervention.
We saw how a noble, if completely misguided, attempt by the future resistance to change history resulted in the very catastrophe, the explosion and the ensuing wars, that the future inhabitants were trying so desperately to avoid.
Their desire for liberation became the engine of their enslavement.
Which leads to our second point, the true nature of the alien threat. The power of the Daleks was not just military might, it was their ability to enforce a self-fulfilling historical loop.
They weren't just conquering the planet. They were manipulating events from their future vantage point to guarantee their own past ascension.
And this manipulation hinged on highly advanced, specialized technology that wasn't just about firepower. We gained key insights into the advanced nature of the threat. Devastating, clean explosives like dalekinium, which left a specific historical trace.
The effective time travel tracking systems like the magnetron, which weaponized the Resistance's own technology.
And the truly disturbing psychological interrogation tools like the mind analysis machine, capable of destroying human intelligence.
Our third key takeaway centers on the nature of historical intervention itself. We learned that changing the past is rarely as simple as reversing a single event.
The very act of intervention, the attempt to change history, Shira stealing the bomb, Joe revealing the location, can become the decisive event itself, proving the Doctor's success lay not in prevention, but in redirection.
And finally, we cannot ignore the persistence of hope. Despite the Daleks' absolute rule, the overwhelming odds faced by the Resistance fighters, who used simple, stolen, often unreliable tools, the sources confirm that the battle for freedom continued ceaselessly.
This resilience was embodied by figures like Moni and Anand, and most dramatically, by the redeemed controller, who chose a dignified death over comfortable slavery.
All of this analysis leaves us with one final provocative thought to consider, based on the Doctor's own final words on the matter.
When asked directly if the future they saw Earth under Dalek rule was now completely averted, the Doctor famously replied with a classic paradox: it is, and it isn't.
That statement is critical. It suggests that correcting this specific temporal paradox, the one where the delegates were murdered by Shura's bomb, didn't erase the possibility of all future Dalek conquests or all future global wars.
If this version of history was corrected, what other wars or catastrophes might still lie ahead on the path to the 22nd century?
And how many other kinds of futures might the Daleks still be pursuing or manipulating across the vast scope of time, waiting for humanity to make a different but equally fatal mistake?
That's a question for you to explore as you reflect on this deep dive.